Alrighty. I am here, and I am only marginally prepared for what is going on. Mostly because I have no idea how these things work. It's just like, do a thing, talk a lot, I don't know. But, anyway, welcome to what is going to be the first of hopefully more than one episode of a new idea I had where we sit down and discuss things of, well, the Xenoblade franchise and see if we can put any coherence to some of the stuff that's not really touched upon in the games. I'm going to hop into my live room with someone else, and I guess that's just how this goes ahead and does the thing. I don't know. And lot there. So, I'll be honest, I don't know what I'm doing, and I'm just sitting here, just panic spiraling. But I guess since I had said kind of as an overall that what I want to discuss is things that are in the game, mostly specifically in Xenoblade 1, but are otherwise kind of unimportant to the story. Like, occasionally we may touch upon stuff that is story, and obviously this is not a spoiler-free territory zone. That just, you know. I mean, he's kind of more the overall lore guy, and I don't know how much he would really care to discuss things like the technology and weapons of Home Society, because that's kind of what I settled for this first one. Yeah, because that kind of came up when I was playing the game for stream, that the dichotomy of, well, the technology available in Xenoblade, oh, Dark is in fact talking, I just forgot to mute that on stream, but point stands.
Wait, what?
Don't worry, my end. But basically, something that came up is that a lot of technology that is prevalent in Xenoblade 1 is whatever is most prevalent for the military. And
Ooh,
that's
my specialty.
kind of. Like, that's one of those things that I've always thought is kind of interesting, is the fact that, you know, they don't have a sense of mass communication even between the two remaining colonies.
So is this like one or two more specifically you're kind of dabbling into?
Mostly one, that's my area of expertise. Two may come up once in a while if there's something important I kind of want to discuss, but one for the most part.
I mean, it's like you said, there isn't exactly much mass communication, and there's not exactly. Well, actually, I'm trying to think. Well, I'm sorry. Were you even finished with your explanation?
Nah, I'd say so. It's just kind of getting that squared away.
I mean, because like the only quote unquote airship that you see in one is Junks,
Well,
if I
no,
remember correctly.
the humps have the mobile transports. That's how they got to Sword Valley and how they were transporting people like
Oh
Dunbale
wait,
back.
yeah, I remember. So
They do have air transport, and they do have things like buggies. Apparently Shulk knows how to operate them too, but like, you know, there's not a lot of room in places like, you know, Colony 9 for vehicles. So
and
it's kind of more surprising he does.
and obviously like the mobile or the artillery unit that'd be like essentially I guess the kind of closest thing they have to like a tank.
Yeah, don't
Like,
forget. Well, yeah, but we're talking, you know, actual. Yeah, we're talking like actual
crashing the
machinery.
mobile house into the artillery unit.
Yeah, like, we're talking actual, like, machinery they use for the sake of transportation. Because even then, apparently, really the only traders, like, the only thing the way traders work is that they still have to haul things basically on foot. Occasionally, maybe with things like Armu. Because because that's primarily what the not bond merchants do, but even the Homs traders, they don't have anything that helps with transportation, and they don't even use their hover transports for military supply runs or anything, because that gets explained literally in frickin' Tever Cave, because Shulk and Ryan run into some Colony 6 soldiers or traders or something, and they're like, well, that explains why we haven't gotten any deliveries lately. So it's like, they're so prevalently, well, I guess, engrossed in making sure their military tech is okay that they don't have much else.
I mean, now that I'm thinking about it, because
I got it.
okay,
Go ahead.
I was about to say, you want me to get that?
Yeah, we know there's short-range communication since Vanguard uses the Yeah, Vanguard uses a short-range radio communicator to yell at the people in the anti-air batteries. So their short-range communication still goes pretty damn far.
I mean, here's the thing, because even for like, I mean, obviously there's not like some kind of equivalent of cars, but the Hyantia is probably a bad example because it's the Hyantia. There are those like trams or whatever that they have around the city.
Yeah, well, like I said, that Colony 6, or at least Juju, has like that little buggy. Like they understand how like motor vehicles work. They literally have the technology for flight. But obviously Colony 9 is too small and condensed entirely on top of a lake that they don't need vehicle transport. But I wouldn't be surprised if in the pregame stuff, like buggies and stuff were a lot more prevalent for getting Colony 6, like closer to Colony 7 or 8. Or even Colony 5, wherever that was. I guess that's kind of the thing. We don't know where any of the other colonies are. So we don't know, like, are Colony 6 and 9, bog standard for technology? Or are they more advanced than usual? Because we basically know that Colony 8 or 10, possibly at worst 7, that, Mumcar is from one of those. And basically, whatever tech from those colonies has basically been lost. Transport with a vehicle from 6 to 9 is probably not as practical, at least because of Tever Cave. Yeah, that is the thing, that Tever Cave is, practically impossible to maneuver in any way but foot. But that still begs the question of why, transports of goods, barring the whole thing of, Colony 6 got attacked, why transport of goods from Colony 6 to 9 was still done on foot if they have flying tech. Like, if you have airships, why deliver it on foot and go through the spider-laden cave connecting Colony 9 to everything else?
Most likely, the only thing I could think of would be simply because of... now, obviously, those things have to have some kind of power source, and I assume it's...
Ether.
Yeah, it's ether.
Everything is ether.
The only thing I kind of could see is they're trying to just, save as much energy and, well, resources as they can. So if you can have it be on foot, there's no point in wasting, the resources for something that would be admittedly safer and quicker, which is stupid, but
I was going to say,
understandable.
I could understand that being the case for Colony 9ers going to Colony 6, because that's something that gets brought up very early, more or less, that of the Colony 9 quartet that you play as, the only one that had ever been outside of the colony, or at least to Colony 6, was Dunban. Fiora had left Colony 9, but that was during an attack and kind of Dunban's fault. Ryan had basically been to the knee, at best. But Shulk, other than obviously the expedition to Ase Tower, had never left the colony. He basically, left once or was never in a colony as a kid, and then he just stayed in the colony.
I don't know. It's hard to say. It's obviously something that they weren't expecting people to put much thought into.
Because they don't have long enough communication range, they couldn't know if a transport vehicle was that or a mech on attack. I I think that's, you know,
I mean, yeah, there's also that.
there's that plausibility since Colony 9 specifically has the anti-air batteries, but I think it kind of had been established that Hom's tank very much does not look at all like mech on tech. Like that, and obviously the anti-air batteries are not automated; they are manned because uh Vanguard's yelling at someone about the anti-air batteries. They're not automated. So someone looking through basically whatever optical sensors or whatever they have in the anti-air batteries would be able to see, oh, that's a Colony 6 trade ship or something like that. Obviously, if it's like a high India ship for any reason that they went down there, they would probably shoot it on sight, but I think it's just one of those things that is kind of just swept under the rug because, you know, not important.
There's no yeah. There's no reason to explain it.
Yeah. But it's
But
still curious because we do see like the rescue ships or whatever that Colony 6 used when you go to the refugee camp because they use that to get everyone back to Colony 6 very quickly. So you would think that Colony 9 Homs would be able to recognize what that ship looks like. Because obviously it seems that their militaries are similar enough that that a Colony 9 soldier could be mistaken for a Colony 6 because remember, Charlotte does think Ryan is a Colony 6 soldier, even though, he's
well, I
from
mean,
9.
yeah. I mean, there's also the fact that even if she is a combat medic, you kind of expect
I'll take that was a cat.
can't expect her to memorize the face of every military personnel, in the entire Colony Six
Yeah,
army,
I
or
mean, I think the
you know.
first thing I think the first thing Charlotte says to you is those uniforms. So the military uniforms of 6 and 9 are standardized. So I would say that they probably have
Yeah.
other identification marks that would help, you know, anyone looking through like a camera or something be able to, go, oh wait, that's Colony 6 ship because, Dunban does establish before everything starts because, we don't know about the phase mechon. The mechon are quote soulless machines. They're not going to be able to hijack a Colony 6 ship and take it to Colony 9 kind of
The
thing.
I mean, the other thing is because we don't even see the remnants of any of the remaining colonies,
No, we don't.
or with Mumkar really being the only person who we know, but who we know confidently came from a colony that's not 6 or 9. It's really hard to say. I mean, because I know you've mentioned this before. At most, we can assume, not say for certain, but assume that Mumkar is probably from either 10 or 8.
Uh, the theory that Grandel was a colony at one point. There is a decent theory for, like, there's a decent idea for a theory for that, and we'll probably eventually delve into that at some point. But I'm gonna say that given it was on the shoulder and it's so close to Aerith Sea and the Hyantia, that I'm gonna chalk that up as a probably not a colony. Mostly
Probably just
because,
an old
e-
Hyantia area.
well, mostly because, even old Dunban, the guy who knows many things, assumes the Hyantia are a myth. So I would doubt that there are any colonies that high up on the Bionis. Otherwise, something, somewhere, someone would be like, oh yeah, no, the Hyantia are real.
So probably anything past Machina Forest, there were no colonies.
Well, even then, all of the colonies had to have been on Bionis' left leg, right leg, and kind of its front. There were homes at least 88 years ago. I mean, true, but it's still the 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 conflict with the Mechon's been kind of going on since forever, and we don't got too much info. But we do know that any Homs colony had to be somewhere on the front of the Bionis, or or at worst, the back of its legs, given Colony 9. But something I kind of brought up earlier was the fact that Homs do have cameras. That's kind of one of those weird things. They do have cameras. Because Dunban's got, like, a photo on the side of his bed. And I'm pretty sure, given the fact that, that was them in their military uniforms and stuff, that's not a portrait, that's a camera. So, again, weird priority of technology. Yeah, of his best friends, quote unquote. But, again, we'll get into that later.
I don't know, I'm just trying to think, because if there's anything we see at any point throughout one that would be like, like what exactly is the most advanced thing that's not really pertaining to the Monado or in an airship? Just like, or what's something that they have which, well,
I would say probably the radio communication. That's probably the most quote unquote advanced tech they have, because it is not like, Morse code or anything. It is actual, I speak into a piece and it transmits my voice to someone else.
At this point, you might as well just have it so that Homs are pretty much using World War II era tech.
Almost, kind of. Like, they have radio. Like, they're just basically the step below, anything visual, but even then their radio tech is severely limited to close range. Like, probably
Actually,
the furthest the Colony 9 radios reaches is probably Tever Cave.
Actually, you know what? I think I might be kind of closer than I think, because they do have radars, correct?
That I'm not positive on, I'll be honest.
If not, then it might not even be like World War II for a comparison. It'd probably be kind of closer to like World War I or just after, because I'm gonna, please excuse me if I slightly derail for a moment, but like back in World War II, not every like warships were a good example. Haha, I know, shocking, but because radar was such a new invention back in the 1940s, not every ship or aircraft was equipped with it yet, because it was still so new and it was expensive and people were still trying to figure it out. So if the Homs don't even have radar, but they at bare minimum have some kind of semblance of radio communication, yeah, I'd probably put them kind of closer to like somewhere in the best comparison would be like the 1930s.
Yeah,
Like mid to late 1930s.
For a comparison, yeah, because I think they might have something similar to it, because I think, again, kind of going to the whole attack on Colony 9, kind of establishing a lot, that I think Vanguard did say something about not picking up the ships coming in, like, how did they not see them, something like that. So I think they have
So probably like late 30s.
Yeah, they have something somewhere that helps them identify something is coming in from the sky.
Do Homs even have refrigeration now?
That they do actually, because if you go to Dunban's house, which is the only time we can go inside a Homs house, because they have plumbing, because there's a sink in the kitchen, and Charlotte does confirm that they have showers, because she mentions that in one of her battle lines. But there's a fridge in Dunban's house and a fully functioning stove. Like, they probably figured out refrigeration pretty early on due to the abundance of ice ether. In fact, it's probably a Colony 9 invention, because they have ice ether right in Tephra Cave.
I mean, there's the whole thing with like plumbing has existed since like I think the Romans. It was the Romans or Greeks.
Sophisticated. I have a sink in my house.
Oh no, yeah. That's definitely within past couple centuries.
Yeah. Again, probably the whole refrigeration thing was probably something, again, invented probably primarily in Colony 9, given, they have the ice ether right in Tephra Cave before all the giant spiders, actually. And again, prevalence of military tech. Restroom plumbing existed forever, but things like sinks aren't that recent.
Actually, now that I think about it, it's possible that
are recent.
even their, because we don't know if the radio is strictly used by the Ham's military. But I mean, if we're gonna use reality as another comparison, it's possible that some of their more sophisticated quote unquote things of technology might have been originally stuff used for the military, because that's how stuff a ton of stuff is in reality. Like, it was originally just stuff that the military invented in for like either beefing themselves up or in wartime.
Yeah, and then it just becomes standardized once it leaves the military.
Yeah.
Which, yeah, it is a it is kind of a weird thing that a lot of it we do have to assume is basically it is there because it was good for the defense force.
I mean, I'm trying to think, because obviously Colony 9 is like way more militarized, but for good reason. But they still have ways, to like grow crops and stuff. But
Well,
Colony 9 is,
we're not sure for 9 specifically, but 6 definitely.
I'm almost kind of curious if there's not, because there's not, well, there's not, I'm stumbling on my words so much. Wow, I'm sorry. But there's not like a, a harvesting equipment like for getting at crops.
I think in terms of that is still primarily either done by hand or left up to basically the Armu, which are more or less the cattle of the universe.
Pretty much.
Or even for the sake of Colony 6, probably like the Ponios, because again, that's the closest they have to horses.
Just imagining somebody having an arm with an old like plow attached to the back of it and just pulling it to till a field.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. Colony 6 does have a farm. But that's kind
Yeah,
of
I
those
remember,
things.
because it's full of corgis.
But that is kind of those things that certain stuff like that is, again, have to kind of consider geolocation. Like, it seems that Colony 9 is, you know, very trade reliant because of the fact that the entire colony is on top of, a lake.
well, that, and like, for convenience sake, let's put it back into the perspective of colonies. The other colonies still exist, because 9 is nearly at the bottom of the Bionis. Like, the only thing below it is 10. So pretty much, unless you have stuff coming in from 10, everything is going to be coming in from 1 through 8, because you're basically near the bottom. So
Yeah,
it probably is very trade reliant.
Montero does bring up a good point that the ground seems a little too rocky uh to get anything going, even if they did have like the right kind of soil, because that's
Mm,
one of those things that in terms of the collectibles, I mean, from a gameplay perspective, it makes sense, but from the perspective of it, there is only 2 fruits and
uh,
2 vegetables or something like that in
uh,
that are collectibles for Colony 9. Like,
yeah,
there's a very little bit of variety, so it probably means that Colony 9 of itself doesn't have ways of even making artificial plots
uh,
to grow crops, so they rely on the
Ari,
Nopon and stuff.
you still have that list of like foods that you were working on, correct?
I have a list of the collectibles and stuff for Xenoblade.
Uh, so I searched up fruits and vegetables that can grow in rocky environments. Oh, sorry. Uh, Rocky soil can be a challenge for mini gardeners. Finding the correct fruit tree that will thrive in a rocky environment is the key to a successful harvest. The best fruit trees for rocky soil include cherry trees, olive trees, apple trees, fig trees, peach trees, plum trees, and apricot trees.
Well, at least one of those kind of makes sense, because, like I said, they probably don't have much way of, you know, cultivating in mass because there's just not enough land. But yeah, there are 4 collectibles that are considered vegetable category native to Colony 9, and there are 2 fruit that are native to Colony 9. Not including Tephra Cave, because Tephra Cave is a cave,
Uh,
but very
uh,
specifically, it is the dance apple and the black kiwi. But there's still the point
uh,
that, even if they had the space for it, all of that would still have to be done by hand.
I googled specifically vegetables. The first things I'm seeing involve carrots, radishes, potatoes, beets, and sweet corn, and some varieties of squash and peas, and some varieties of tomatoes, kohlrabi, rutabagas, really turnips.
Basically a lot of root.
Yeah, because melons, some beans,
Again,
pumpkins.
again, that kind of lines up pretty well. Because the native vegetables are the cool potato, red lettuce, chewy radish, and the sweet wasabi. So that kind of lines up. But
So whether or not that's just a coincidence or not is kind of hard to say.
yeah, but like let me look at like the things that are considered parts because that's one of those things. Yeah, because there's the blue chain and the rabbit diode.
I mean,
Why do you have a rutabaga emote, Montaru? Either way.
why do you know what? Never mind. But um, I mean, here's the other thing. We don't know for like the quote unquote parts how many of those are just random pieces of junk, or how many of those are just some leftover mechon parts.
Something like the blue chain, probably maybe coming from the Mechon, but the rapid diode, a little hard to say. But it doesn't really explain what the diode is either. But let's see here. Blue chain looks old but should be usable. Yeah, so I mean, we do have to take kind of in consideration when it comes to the whole tech thing that Shulk is a weapons development guy. Like he's not a full-fledged soldier in the Colony United Defense Force, but he does work for them, and he's apparently one of their big weapon devs guys. Considering he's the one scavenging for parts and shit. And, he doesn't really answer to the colonel. But there's still the point that, that they are so, invested in the technology that they're just kind of taking anyone that has any interest in machinery and being like, hey, we need you to do this. If you're, like, catching my drift.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, because it was even said that obviously the Homs numbers are declining because it's just, it's only 2 colonies left.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd imagine that the this is gonna sound kind of weird, like the time of pregnancy for Homs is probably on par with that of a human.
Probably safe to assume so, but Hans biology is definitely going to be another topic for another day.
Well, yeah, because
because we know so
yeah.
goddamn little about that. But the point still stands.
Yeah, they're closer to plants than they are people.
Well, we'll discuss that later.
Yeah.
But I was going to say, like, the thing is that, like, even someone like Juju, who is 13, he seems to know his fair share of how to get about the technology. Like, kids pick things up fast, but it's also, time of war. But it's still the fact that this 13-year-old kid apparently has as much interest in technology and shit compared to like even frickin' Shulk, who is more or less the youngest of the party. Because obviously we don't exactly know his age relative to the others, but it's kind of implied that Shulk's younger than Fiora. So
and then there's Rhine, who's
Ron.
I don't know. Yeah. Ryan's essentially the 18-volt.
But he doesn't know how to drive since he crashed on a straight bridge. I mean, he was also kind of just peeling out of there in a hurry, and he probably was trying to avoid that giant charging Arden that's in the way between the refugee camp and the bridge. Or maybe Shulk missed that the axle was broke or something. We don't know what happened. But yes, Juju is not very good at driving. But there's still the point that he knows how the darn thing works.
I mean, pretty much the entire section of the game is, okay, Zord, let go of the plot device.
I mean, it's also a case of, can the plot device actually do something useful for once?
I'm not okay. I'm not gonna compare Juju to Mokuba. That's insulting to Juju.
Insulting to Juju. Okay.
Comparing
Anyway,
him to Mokuba.
I don't know, man. It probably depends. But point. Because I think that's one of those things that it doesn't really get brought up, but, late in the game, Juju still knows how to operate, like, the weird bayonet gun shield things that Colony 6 has. Like, he's not a terribly great shot, but he's at least somewhat competent with it. Because do bear in mind that Juju's not actually old enough to enter the Hum's military.
Yeah, because
It's implied. It's implied in the Monado archive that a Homs has to be at least 15 to 17 in order to enlist, but that's based off of Ryan.
But we also don't
Competent
know
enough
if,
that they send him out of the walls, basically.
and we also don't know if that varies from area to area.
I mean, like I said, the uniforms are standardized, so I wouldn't be surprised if everything about that is, for the sake of it, standardized between the two colonies.
Well, yes. I mean, by more so than the now non-existent ones.
Well, again, hard to say.
We're never going to get any info on those.
Yeah, that's the unfortunate thing of we're not getting much information for 1 through 5, 7, 8, or 10. It's just a case of we know they exist. That's all we're getting.
They existed.
Yeah, they existed. Mum cars from one of them. Question mark on which one. Sweep it under the bed.
It's probably either 8 or 10. Given otherwise, if it was like
Colony 3, he probably would have been in 6.
Yeah, or yeah, he would. Well, if he at best.
I mean that is one of those things that we don't even know how long he had been in Colony 9. That's not really explained either. I mean, there's also the good question: how did he get to Colony 9? We don't know because. Go on.
It's possible that there might have just been a group of, like, say, survivors. Like, for convenience sake, let's say he came from 10. Maybe there was like
Climb the walls with his claws.
A group of survivors that were in one of the transport ships, and he was one of them, and they just went to the nearest colony, which would be 9.
But the problem is that he was the only survivor. That's outright stated. He was the only one. So maybe he just hitched his own emergency transport by himself. Because other than Tephra Cave, there's no way to get into Colony 9. That's the weird thing, is that they only have the one cave into Colony 9. How does anyone get in there? Colony 6 at least has Satoral Marsh and the skies above it, and, Gower Plains and the Bionis Leg.
Here's something I've always been kind of curious about. Like, why does Mumkar use claws, and Dixon, I'm pretty sure he uses a different kind of gun from the others, but
it's a gun sword thing.
Yeah, I mean, Dixon I get because it's Dixon, but Mumkar, he's not using like the weird shield.
Why is Dunban a swordsman?
Oh, okay, Dunban gets a pass because he's the only one who could wield the frickin' thing.
I mean, no, not even that. Why is he a swordsman? Straight up, Dunban has a collection of swords. He is well versed in sword play. He taught his sister how to use swords. Why is Dunban a swordsman? I don't know.
Fair.
Like, that is the thing, that the rest of the Homs military is standardized to use the gun lances. Ryan uses a particularly oversized one, but that is still standard weaponry for the Homs. Why is Dunban just a swordsman?
Your guess is as good as mine.
Yeah, because, like I said, even Juju uses like a weird gun lance thing. His is a lot smaller, and it's more like a gun with a bayonet.
But, it's the cadet model.
Wouldn't be surprised. But that is the weird thing that, they have the technology for gun blades and gun lances. Because that's what Dixon uses, is that he uses a gun blade. But yet, you tell Dunban, go fight, and he'll pick up a frickin' sword. Just just a sword by itself. He doesn't, like, you'd think he would use something like the Gunblade, if only because Homs aren't magic. Apparently they have the capacity to learn how, because, Melia is willing to teach Shulk how to use ether magic. And, they still have some ability to do so, because of Shulk using Light Heal and the aspect of auras. But it's still weird that they don't incorporate more ether in general, I guess,
I
considering you're
mean,
so
it's
reliant in the first place.
I kind of could see it being two things. One being, well, maybe three, but one, the fact that they probably just don't have time, energy, or resources to put much into trying to figure that out. And even if they could, it would take years, if not generations, for it to possibly, not even guaranteed, possibly show some kind of worthwhile results. And
I mean, there's still the
and
point that, Charlotte noted that it was weird that Melia can use ether without a catalyst. I mean, that is still a factor of, that. But it's still a matter of that apparently Homs can be taught how to use it, and what's stopping them from using ether catalysts in a way similar to using, the staff. Like, I'm not saying they'd be able to summon. That seems to be a very high Entia thing. But the only time we see the true integration of ether into, well, anything besides, commonplace electricity, more or less, is just thunderbullets. Like, even the ether we see in the guns is either heal or thunder. Like, they don't use wind, they don't use earth, they don't use, well, like, I guess there's a little bit of fire.
I'm
But
trying to
you
remember
kind of get the point.
I'm trying to remember if even like when we see Shulk and Fiora and Dunban's house, holy shit. Um, if we see something that indicates they have electricity.
Yeah, they're ether lights.
Oh, okay, so yeah,
Yeah, all any lights or like I think if you go to Dunban's house at night, it is lit up.
I'm just imagining. Oh, the ether lights are out. You better call the electrician.
Like the
Just a
thing
person with a bunch of
is,
electric ether.
well, like that's the thing. Ether light is a giant electric ether crystal and stuff like that. Like it's kind of just explained that, any sort of quote electricity or anything is just more ether. And this is only brought up in the Monado archive in that bonus story. But apparently Fiora does have an ether lamp in her room that is constantly on even in the middle of the night. So I think it's kind of a matter of, you can use electric ether to turn on the lights, but there's not a good way of turning it off. So, like, things are always lit up. Like, I think that's actually the point in that one side quest where there's like a weird yellow glow in the lake, and it turns out that it's an ether lamp that fell in there and hadn't burnt out yet.
Mm-hmm.
But you kind of get the point that it their tech, at least for Homs, is both weirdly advanced but kind of outdated by the same standards.
I don't know. That kind of could raise the question of even like the mobile artillery units. Would the, are the well? Wait, no. We know those are powered by ether.
Yeah, that's the entire reason you go to Tefra Cave, is because they ran out of ether, and the
Which,
closest ether supply storage that is not Colony 6 is that weird ship up in the cliffside.
which that's confirmed. It's just a high Entia ship, correct?
A very, very old one at that, but yes. Like, that is confirmed to just be a very old high Indian ship.
It's probably old enough to where Melia's father would have been still probably her age when they ended up there.
I don't remember, but I think Melia confirms that it's like really, really old. Like, even compared to what, would be considered old by high Andean standards. Because you have to remember, that thing is, like, surrounded by rock and grass. Like, that thing's been there for
A few
longer than a...
thousand years.
Yeah, it's kind of... Because there's the whole point of, like, why is it down here anyway? So, yeah, that is probably at least a few thousand years old. The fact that its ether is still good, though, is kind of hilarious. And that
That,
the sentry robots in it are also operational. That is also
now,
pretty funny.
I mean, that kind of could just raise the question of what exactly is the even the half-life of ether.
It seems to vary because of the fact that ether lamps can burn out. Like eventually all ether will burn out, and apparently electric ether has to be kind of replaced pretty damn often. Because Charlotte mentions that when she was, younger, the first job she ever had was racing Gatto to see who could replace the ether lamps in the ether mine faster. Meaning they had to do that pretty regularly. But from what I can tell, the mobile artillery is powered by a blue ether, which is probably either ice or water. Probably basically because it's a coolant in of itself. But yet,
I mean, that just has me thinking that it's steam powered.
probably essentially, like I've kind of noted that Xenoblade is this kind of a funny version of not steampunk.
Like sci-fi steampunk.
Yeah, like, but with less steam, more magic. But there's still kind of that entire point that, their technology is, besides the Nopon, the least advanced in the entire game. Like, Nopon are not that advanced, but it's more in the fact that they willingly choose to only use materials from the forest. Like, Shulk is mesmerized by the complexity that is the pollen works, but Ricky corrects him saying it's not a machine because it's not made of metal. It's more of a contraption.
I guess the contraption that creates their whiskey and cocaine.
Well, hold on. The pollen, the red pollen orbs used to make the caviar is the only
Oh,
drugs.
oh wait,
Pollen orbs,
yeah.
pollen orbs actually have many uses besides drug, because that's just the
Uh,
red ones. But yellow ones are used as light, and blue ones are food.
Now that I think of it, even between two, there's not something that you kind of could say is like per se an equivalent of a train per se.
Shiny weed.
What?
Just DJs like shiny weed.
I mean, but
But
yeah,
yeah, there's not. I mean, to be fair, trains kind of are, things of very, very long transport. And I mean, I guess that's one of those things that they have mechanical elevators. Like they actually have full-fledged fucking elevators.
like now that I'm saying it, like that kind of could have solved quite a bit of their issues. Like
Well,
I
they would
get
have
why,
needed,
because
like, a lot of elevators and
well, no, I
stuff to
mean like
get from
like
there.
like some kind of subway train. Because yeah, yes, it'd be very hard to create, but that would be
You had
insanely safe.
I mean, you'd
Like
have to
something that could go
remember,
between
though, that
colonies.
Colony 9 is basically straight down compared to
Oh,
Colony 6.
yeah.
Like,
You have
they'd
a
either have to
point.
be building something with supports for days that'll be able to get it across the giant gap from 6 to 9, or, like, even an elevator would technically be better to get from Tefra Cave to the Bionis Knee, but even then, that's at a weird, skewed angle. But I guess that's one of those things that we didn't bring up is whatever the fuck's going on in the ether mine. Like, they have a giant, like, centrifuge machine something. Like, it's like a nut turbine or something. Like, how did they build that? And what exactly is it doing? Because I know it's not to filter the heat of the ether mine because of Charlotte well, not complaining, but explaining that Colony 6 is insanely hot.
Which is weird. Weird because now I'm kind of curious if maybe uh if Colony 6 at Birmingham could have utilized something that could just be powered by heat, like some kind of thermal generator.
I mean, that might be what that giant thing in the middle is that's constantly stirring up the ether river. It might be like a thermal generator, because the ether rivers, that's explained that those are essentially lava, because they run so hot due to basically constant ether catalyst explosions. Like,
And
I'm trying to think of the word.
they're hot enough to where they're capable of disintegrating Zord's armor, so he actually can be affected by the Monado.
Yeah, like if the ether river did that, chain reactions. Thank you, Montaru. If the ether river is able to do that to mech on armor, I'd hate to see what it would do to a Homs.
And not even just some random foot soldier mech on a face unit. I mean, an early face unit, but still a face unit.
Mm-hmm. Because that stuff is insanely tough, even for, besides the whole weird magic shenanigans of the Monado. That stuff is just tough.
I mean, I almost kind of could see it being better, more fitting to refer to it being acid rather than lava.
Yeah, but it's still the point that it is exceedingly hot. The only other thing to damage it that well is Telethia. Yeah, and those things are weird for their own reasons that we'll get to later.
The more I'm mentioning this, the more I'm kind of just realizing 2 technically has much more advancements in technology, but a good chunk of like the big, like bulky machinery and advancements are just strapped onto the back of Titans.
I mean, yeah, that's still, but that's also because 2 didn't have the major conflict that 1 does, that technology is being halted because 80% of the population is dying out. The World of 2 had time to grow and develop, and they had the ability to discover said technology because they just simply had time on their hands.
Yeah,
I'm gonna point at frickin' Morardane.
The worst things that 2 has to worry about are the Pope being a piece of shit, the Nopons being equally big pieces of shit, and the terrorists who are
2
probably
has actual communication technology where they use transcloud C communication with video. Yeah, like that's the entire thing with, like, frickin' Dougal. They have the ability to talk to each other from frickin' Argentum to Morardane. But 1, they struggle probably even getting a single message from the center of Colony 9 to the edge of Tefra Cave.
This is something I was gonna kind of bring up earlier, because like 2, for example, like Newt mentions this. She straight up says in one of her in her heart to heart, oh yeah, there's more warships. I mean warships, just essentially guns and a helmet on a Titan. But yeah, there's a destroyer, a submarine, a battleship, a cruiser. But obviously, the Homs don't have anything even similar to this. But not. But what kind of confused me is, yes, they don't have Titans for them to mount it on, but they have airships. So what's stopping them from just essentially putting a bunch of guns on, airships of varying sizes?
I mean, I think that might come down to a resources thing, because you have to remember, with like at least Colony 9, they only seem to have had the 1 blacksmith. So he probably was doing all their work for not only, general work, but also the military.
Now that I think of it, because it was said that by the time Sword Valley happened, there was what, 5, 6 mobile artillery units, and by the time the story starts, there's like only 3, and only 1 of them is operational.
I think something like that. I don't exactly remember. There's a lot of stuff I'd have to think. Airships don't seem fast enough. They have flying vehicles besides junk that were actually mobile. I mean, yeah, but again, that's getting into high anti-attack, which is obviously weird in and of itself. Because that's one of those things that, if I've learned anything from my many dives into stuff, is that 1 Homs needs to have many, many different skills. Like, obviously, there are some that are not in the defense force, like Kenny Rohan, or Sesame, or others like Marsha or something, that they're just kind of normal people, because apparently they don't enlist anyone who's old enough to be defense force, probably under the some pretense of we had to have some civilians for the sake of survival. But
just in case if like a whole unit gets or a
completely,
whole army gets wiped out, there's still people to keep the species going.
yeah. But that's one of those things that, Colony 9 had a blacksmith, but apparently he was like the only one because, his daughter is now like, should I become a blacksmith kind of thing. But it's already confirmed as well that Dunban, despite being a pretty fantastic soldier, had to pick up many different other trades more or less in order to just exist. Like, apparently, Dunban's had to rebuild the house a couple times, meaning Dunban is a pretty decent carpenter and mason.
I mean, we also don't exactly know how badly it was destroyed or damaged because, I mean, that could imply that one section of it got destroyed, or quite literally everything but the living room was gone.
Yeah, Shulgin and Dixon have some forging, but everyone says sword was the best. Yeah. That is the thing, that a lot of stuff is left intentionally vague, but, I think it's between Dunban and Fiora that they specifically say that they had to repair or rebuild the house. Like, specifically the word rebuild, not repair. Meaning, it probably got pretty trashed, but some parts of it still survived because apparently Dunban's parents' room is still the way it was ages ago. So apparently it might have just mostly been the downstairs. But even then, that would still require some foundation work, because the door probably got busted down because Mechon are huge, and carpentry work because the freaking stairs.
Well, that, and as somebody who deals, with this, working with 100-plus-year-old buildings, it also kind of could mean that Dunban might have had to, check that the stability of like the sides were okay, and the roof would probably be another big one. But I imagine if uh, even a half rebuild of the house was required, the roof is probably kind of
You know,
the least of their concerns.
I mean, we had to take in consideration that apparently they're able to make basically anything out of anything that they can find. Like, if there's a material that they figured out how to use, you bet that they figured out any use that they can for it. Like, there's some things that are obviously like very useless, like a piece of wood that was eaten up by the frickin' ants. But like, apparently, like the iron and stuff that bunnets like to scrounge and use as their bats, apparently that is some pretty high quality iron. But it's still a point that, you have to wonder the rate that they make stuff as well. Like, assuming pre-canon sort of thing, like Zord doing stuff in the smith, like, did he have any apprentices? Uh, does he have like an industrial-sized ether furnace? Like, how do they make this stuff? How is it made? How long does it take?
I mean, uh, hmm, like, mm,
But you kind of get the point that stuff like this is always interesting to think about, because we have the benefit of hindsight and seeing progression from a point of view where things are, we literally have a worlds of information sitting in our back pocket. But we're discussing something that, one, doesn't exist, and two, is stuck in an era that is hard to explain.
yeah, because like I said, everything considered between like presumably early radar, some kind of semblance of refrigeration, and their best methods of communication being radio. Again, this could just be the military historian in me, but that just sounds like late 1930s, early 1940s.
Montero brings up a good point that metal from Bionis is implied to be vastly inferior to metal from Mechonis, since all anti-mechon weapons are said to be forged from mechon armor. Some hindrance to Homestead could just be that all their material is awful, which that could
that is
make some amount of sense.
It
since
very well could just be that because Bionis is so much more nature and natural based that any kind of metal deposits or mineral deposits for metallic substances are just of such poor quality, it's not worth it.
I mean, at least comparatively, because you have to take in consideration that even high-entian technology is not anti-mechon by default. Like, even Melia struggles to pierce mechon armor. She's better at it than the Homs, because Ether just bypasses it somewhat. But even, attack-wise, she does half damage naturally, unless given anti-mechon. So, even the Hyantia, who are vastly advanced, and have had knowledge of mechon for, ages and generations, can't pierce mechon armor.
Because their reasoning is they just straight up never had to worry about it, but it's kind of curious because had they actually, put the effort and thought into trying to come up with some way to combat them, they may have, over the course of thousands of years, obviously, been actually capable of coming up with something on par with what the Machina have.
I mean, they might have been able to do something that might help, but you do have to remember that the Hyantia were very
private, so to say.
Very private, one, but also two, they had bigger fish to fry with the whole Telethia thing.
I mean, yeah, they're getting attacked by Mechon. Well, that sucks. They probably prefer those than what you have to deal with.
I mean, to be fair, the Mechon were very much the same. The iron on the Bionis and titanium on the Mechon. I mean, we don't exactly know. That is one of those things that we definitely don't know, because mechon armor is still light enough for them to be able to be flight. Like, they have natural flight capabilities for some mechon that are obviously smaller, but it's light enough for that, but still heavy enough for a full-fledged Machina to sink like a stone in water, but yet Fiora can swim, and that's just one of those giant question marks.
Again, it's probably not something that you're supposed to put terribly much thought into.
Oh, definitely, but thought into it that we do.
Yeah.
But I think this is kind of getting to a point where we'll just end up talking ourselves into circles. So I'd say that we definitely discussed some very interesting points of Hom's technology and stuff. But I guess this is kind of more of a generalized question before I start closing things out here of, where do I put this other than maybe just uploading it to my YouTube channel? Like, should I just leave this like as a highlight on here for people to watch as they come to the channel, or should it just stay on the YouTube, like on my primary YouTube channel?
I'd say maybe both. Put it on YouTube, for archival purposes, and just kind of leave it here with obviously put like a spoiler warning.
Make a podcast.
Yeah. I'm kind of a PJ.
I mean, I was gonna, like I said, I don't want to put this I wasn't going to put this specifically on the VOD channel, because this is a much more current thing that is obviously, quote, shorter content compared to VODs. So I was probably going to put this on my main channel, but I would definitely stick it into a podcast playlist. It's just a matter of, does anyone have any other suggestions? Because I've heard people putting, like, shit on iTunes or whatever, but, not the biggest deal to me in the end.
I'd say your YouTube channel. I don't know if it's... yeah, probably just your YouTube.
But I hope y'all enjoyed this kind of first foray into just, sitting around and talking, make-believe kind of sort of stuff, I guess.
Ari, we're right. Ari, you and I are both writers. That's kind of part of our job.
That's not what I mean. It's like, I just feel like, I don't know. This is not my
usual.
Well,
no, I know what you mean. I'm just giving you shit.
But I would say that I'll probably have this maybe be like a once a month sort of ordeal, sort of
Or
thing.
whenever it's relevant and current.
Well, not. Dude, I'm talking about Xenoblade 1. When is it relevant?
Oh.
When is it relevant, man?
Well, we just got 3 announced.
Well, yeah, but, you know. But, like I said, I'll probably try and make this like a monthly sort of foray. I don't know what Topico will be next month. Probably something I wanted to discuss this month, but I felt it would be a little heavy for a first episode, but we shall see. But I hope you all enjoyed. I'm not going to be streaming next Sunday because that'll be TRG Coliseum, and I'm not going to try and compete with that. So
Yeah, good idea.
So I may see you guys like on Tuesday or something. But until then, I hope you all have a good day and we'll see you next time.